Welcome back, New Jersey football fans, to the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show on this Thanksgiving Eve. I know some of you are out there watching a game that's also being broadcast on the radio. Others are probably, getting ready to meet up with high school friends or whatever. Everybody be safe tonight.
Some, I think, have already met up. The Thanksgiving Eve has now become Thanksgiving Eve Day. No?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe in the future we can do this from maybe a local establishment.
Hey, that'd be a good idea, huh?
Right?
Yeah, that'd be great. Except, for me, it's going to be got to get out Friday, so got to rest up.
I understand.
Got to make sure there's a lot of dots on the map here in the next few days in New Jersey football. So thank you to the brave few who are in here. Feel free to comment on the games last weekend. But Mac, I know you're getting ready for the gravy, making the gravy. It's a big deal.
That's all I got to do.
You want to give the secret recipe?
No, not really. Use the drippings. Don't be shy. Use the drippings, and you got to get the fat off. You got to get the fat off, or it gets a little funky.
Say that's your favorite part of Thanksgiving is the gravy?
I don't, because I make it, I can't say it is, but
it's pretty good. I've had it.
Thank you. Thanks, Trible. Right.
I'm going to go sweet potatoes.
With or without the marshmallows and the pecans?
Not marshmallows. Pecans and coconut on top.
Yeah. You're an aristocrat. I forgot.
I'm a big sweet potato guy.
Yeah, but if a good gravy can solve all problems of a meal.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, my wife
drizzled all over everything.
Yeah. She does all. But look, she does a great job with all the sides. I'm usually the turkey and the gravy, and it drives her crazy because that's the only thing I make all year. 364 days a year, I don't make anything. Well, sometimes, but I get the turkey gravy. But if you get the good gravy, you can fix some. Things aren't because timing's everything. We could have we could do a couple shows on the whole timing issue.
No question.
Right? So
what do you want? What do you like, Rod?
I have a confession. I'm not a turkey guy.
All right, that's fine.
So
it's okay.
We usually substitute. We have ham.
Yep.
Ham and the yams.
Do you do like a side turkey action just to?
Yeah, she does. My wife does, but I'm not into the turkey.
Listen, I think if you ask most people, turkey's the last. Like if you list everything on Thanksgiving and what you like the most, turkey's the last thing. It's usually, those sweet potatoes.
It's the sides.
All the sides.
And the good thing about tomorrow is that turkey, if you eat it a little bit early, that nap's really going to hit as Dallas plays the Giants. I mean, that's going to be perfect timing.
Well, that game will put you to sleep anyway.
Yeah, I think that'll be the tryptophan classic. For that one.
But I am stingy with the gravy. I'm in charge of the gravy boat. I make sure that you can't just do one of these dumps, right? Like, 'cause if it's good fresh gravy from the pan, from the drippings, you don't have gallons of it. You have a certain amount of it. So you got to be very judicious in how you use it.
So our tradition between me and my brother is my sister. Well, my grandmother, she started it, and then my mom, and now it's my sister's tradition. She'll make us our own sweet potato pies.
There you go.
Each year, you have your own.
We have our own.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, we don't. It's no sharing.
That's
There's no sharing.
See, I love sweet potato anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lot to break down. We got state finals coming up this weekend and into next week. But first, I'm going to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, the West Jersey Football Coaches Association. Established to promote, improve, and unite football in South Jersey. They've done just that. In 3 years, they've dedicated close to $80,000 to provide scholarships through the National Football Foundation and the Touchdown Club of Southern New Jersey. The group has also donated to the charity Philly Faces, which helps those in need of facial reconstruction surgery. Thank you to the West Jersey Football Coaches Association for your sponsorship of the show. Also, shout out to our buddy Dave O'Sullivan, sjglorydays.com. Sully's the reason we have a platform here to do the show. Thank you, Sully. Thank you for everybody who's helped with the show so far this year. Chris Baker, Brian Tortella, others. We are down here to crunch time as the season. I think we'll have one more show after this that'll wrap up the whole season. Not sure exactly when that will be because our usual time slot is when Winslow plays. Their Group 4 state final at Rutgers next Wednesday night.
That wouldn't make sense that wouldn't make sense for us to have a show concurrently.
I'll be at that.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll be there, so I won't be here. And I know, maybe you guys could host a show without me. I don't know, but we'll see.
We
wouldn't
all
be the same.
We all could go to the.
Could do it live from SHI Stadium.
We have a little on-site action. Can you get me in?
I'll try.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's talk first, Mac, about game of the week, the Group 4 state semifinal last week. It was Winslow. It was Millville. It was a game we looked forward to at the beginning of the season. We looked forward to the rematch, of course. This was a defensive struggle. I think back to your game against RV, the South Jersey final, a handful of years ago. This was similar, really nip and tuck. You felt like, it might be a mistake that breaks it open. That's exactly what happened. Winslow wins 13-7. They're down 7-0 at halftime on the strength of a Latsier Brooks touchdown catch. Boomer Helton has a touchdown catch of his own, to bring it to bring things even. And then a toss on their own goal line, pretty much. Millville fumbles the ball. Winslow recovers. Nakeem Powell jumps on it. He ends up plunging in for a short score after that. And that was it. I mean, Cam Miller with the big interception to seal it. This was Winslow's first close game. If you look at their schedule this season, the closest one other than this was St. Augustine, which was 21-7 in a game where St. Augustine really did nothing offensively. So you wondered, with the high scoring, with the blowouts, with the touchdown passes, with all this stuff, if Winslow could win that close, ugly game, or even if they'd have to this season. And they proved that they could do it against Millville in what was really a classic. And I want to give a shout out before I spin it to you here, to all the fans who packed the place. It was like 4 deep on the fence.
No doubt.
Thousands of people there.
Oh, yeah.
Sunny day, perfect South Jersey match up there in the state semifinal. Exactly how it ought to be. But Winslow comes away with the win.
Well, look, Winslow all year has been, as we know, dominating their schedule, dominating. But here's the deal. Their defense has been dominating.
Yeah.
It's not like they've been in shootouts.
Yeah.
They haven't been in the 42-38s. And so seeing Winslow holding Millville again to a touchdown is not what wasn't – that's not the surprising part. The surprising part would be, how does Winslow play in a tight game, like in a game where they're not 2 scores up, right? I mean, I've seen them live now a couple their defense, right? They play defense, and they rally to the ball, and they do the things that you need to do. And then in those type of situations, we were talking about a pre-show, turnovers, and really inopportune turnovers can really, and in this case, Millville puts the ball on the ground, and Winslow takes advantage and holds them throughout the whole day too.
Yeah, and I just thought, to run that toss, not a play they run often, not like Mainland, who runs a toss a lot. A play they don't run often, to run it kind of in the shadow of your own goal line. I'm sure if they could go back, Millville would probably call a different play. They're pinned up against their goal line. It was not the play they wanted. It wasn't the result they wanted. But, I give a lot of credit, too, to Nakeem Powell. We mentioned him time after time after time after time on this show through the year as that glue guy for Winslow. Gets it done, does the job, seems to always be in the big play spot. Again, carrying the ball in the second half. A couple swing passes to him in the second half, Rod, was really most of the offense for Winslow in this game. Rod, you saw. Talk about what you thought Nakeem brought to the mix on Saturday.
No, that was probably their bread and butter when they needed it, was that swing pass. I think they hit it 2 or 3 times right before they got the go-ahead score. He's dynamic. He's a guy that, when they need him in the slot, they put him in the slot, get him the ball, and then even in the backfield. But one thing I'll say that Winslow was able to do this game was Parker was off just a little bit. And I think he would even say it. I don't know if it was like a little injury or if it was something else. They weren't going the way that they usually go. The wind was blowing. It wasn't a great pass day, right? So they were able to insert different guys into the lineup to be able to continue to move the ball. I know it was a low-scoring game, but you still had to move the ball to keep that field position in your favor.
Right. You talk about a swing pass, right? It sounds so, simple, but first of all, it's a tough pass to throw sometimes for quarterbacks in itself. So everybody thinks, oh, it's only 15 yards, but it's a little different release. The other thing is this, good call typically with man the swings and some picks, whether you're getting some from slants or whether you're getting a tight end across the other way, that flat route, or whether it's run with some width or coming right off of off of the backfield action. If you're in man coverage there, a linebacker's got to get through some traffic to cover that guy.
Right.
Right. I mean, and what do we talk about? Matchups. You get a running back who's got to be covered by a linebacker. It might be just as he's athletic, but you're running. That's typically a mismatch, especially in this game.
That was the subtle adjustment that I think Bill calls a play. So that was the subtle adjustment that Bill made in that game, was to move Nakeem to the backfield because they weren't getting enough from Duckett or Ali, where they were able to move him into the backfield. Now it creates a matchup problem where we can get one of our better receivers / running backs into the flat man on man, and he's able to make some plays.
Right, and coming out of the backfield is a little different than just, say, lining him up in the slot.
Yeah. Exactly.
Did the same thing the first time they played. If you remember, the first half was a lot of different backs carrying the ball. The second half, Powell went back there. And you're wondering, is it an injury? Is there some other reason? No, that was just their bread and butter guy when they wanted to put the game away, and it was him all the way. Let's listen to what he's done this season. You talk about an all-purpose type player. 431 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. 454 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. 47 tackles, 4 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6, 2 fumble recoveries, and a kickoff return for touchdown. So, I mean, you talk about a guy that affects the game at every level, and Winslow has a couple guys like that, but Nakeem Powell really, he got the hat. Of course, he deserved it, and he was Nakeem on the spot Saturday.
Yep. It was one play that's kind of floating around, right?
Sure.
And it's just a question that some people had. The play that kind of changed the game was the Brooks interception, right? He intercepted the ball. It was 4th and long, I believe, close to like the 30, 35-yard line, something like that. Brooks picks the ball off, gets tackled right at the 6-yard line. So that play set up the miss sweep and the go-ahead touchdown. So the question that people were questioning online was, should he have knocked it down, or in that situation, do you pick it off? I understand this Brooks. He's a dynamic player, so the whole season he's been able to make plays like that kind of changed the game. In that situation, what do you do?
Well,
it's tough. It's a tough one.
I mean, look, you have one of the most elite players.
Probably the best player in the state.
In a state, depends on you ask, and then one of the top 50 players in the country. I mean, if you tell me you want your best guy with the ball in his hands anywhere on the field, I'd say, okay. And it's different than a punt return, because now you got, 5 or 6 guys out of that Winslow field are linemen, right? So really, you're only in a position like who's going to and when you pick the ball off, look, sometimes when you pick the ball off, some of those receivers, a couple of them behind you.
Yeah.
So we've all seen that play. Him do that play how many times? Right. And in that situation, how many times does it go, go for 6?
I felt like the outcome, it did lead to what was the downfall of Millville. But I think also that Millville had 1 first down in the second half. And if you're their best player and the best player in the area, if the ball touches your hands, which it didn't much on offense, let's be honest.
Because they
didn't get it to them. They didn't have an easy time getting it to them.
They didn't get it to them because the other team's saying, we're not going to let you get it to them.
Winslow played great defense.
Right.
If you're that guy, I don't know how much that, in truth serum, if he would say that or if someone would say that, but you got a shot to at least change field position, whatever. It didn't work out. But I'll say the other play too, Rod, is the strip that Brooks had down inside the 5 when it was out of bounds.
Yep.
That play really, there was a couple plays where you look at it and you say that's like how we talk about it really is that small of a difference. If those players are inbounds and Millville has the ball, Helton doesn't score, it's still a shutout. And really, I think it would have been pretty demoralizing for Winslow in that situation. So, I mean, Brooks has 2 interceptions in the game. He had 1 first half, second half, or maybe both were in the second half. had a touchdown catch, and he has one more game on Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
But it was a classic game, and you know what? You saw two teams that really from the beginning you knew they were on the collision course, and it was worthy of the rematch. I
Yeah.
felt.
And this is exactly how we kind of felt it would play out,
Yeah.
right? You know, in the season, it was a lot of emotions and things like that. Special teams played a big part. But this game, and I try to explain to people, when it gets to the playoffs, everything shrinks.
Mhm.
Your mistakes get magnified, right? So you have to limit the mistakes and you have to play well. Millville was able to do that, and that's what ultimately kept them in the game. The only thing that throughout the game I kept saying, especially in the first half, was, man, I mean, they're controlling the game, but they're only up 7
Yeah.
or 6. Like
Mhm.
that
Right.
was the kind of theme that I kept saying. I'm like, man, you know, if you have the ball down and right, you got to get points because you know how explosive Winslow could be
Right.
potentially. So,
Well,
but it
you
was a great game.
You got to take
Great game.
advantage. I mean, there's those situations in those games you have to take advantage of those opportunities. Or
No question.
Yeah.
And I thought both defensive lines controlled the game.
Yep.
I thought linebacker play was great as
Yep.
well.
Exactly.
Collins and Hurd and those guys.
Hmm.
And the coverage was pretty good. And I thought that really it was just, whoever won the game would have deserved to win the game.
Right.
And you make a mistake, you have a play inside your own 5, a field position. Talk about field position. That was the difference. The mistake went the way of Millville. Winslow capitalizes and undefeated and on to the state final. Real quick, I'm going to, you know what? We'll talk about our Turkey Day slate in segment 2. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back with John Emel, who now has become a reoccurring co-host, and we are glad to have him as he's been watching film and he's ready to give some insight to these state finals.
co-host.
Co-host. We're going to be back with more. There you go. We appreciate everybody tuning in to the Thanksgiving Eve version of the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show's presenting sponsor is the West Jersey Football Coaches Association. The West Jersey Football Coaches Association was established to promote, improve, and unite football in South Jersey. And in less than 4 years, the association created the Battle at the Beach and dedicated itself to helping others. They've donated close to $80,000 to date to provide scholarships through the National Football Foundation and the Touchdown Club of Southern New Jersey. The group has also donated to the charity Philly Faces, which helps those in need of facial reconstruction surgery. Thank you to the West Jersey Football Coaches Association for their sponsorship of the show. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is also sponsored by SRA Home Products. South Jersey, let me tell you about my friends over at SRA Home Products. SRA has been building sunrooms, pergolas, and patio covers for over 25 years. They've built more than 9,000 projects in the Delaware Valley. I've had nothing but the best to say about Mike Fody in the time I've had the chance to be around him and his crew. SRA is a gold accredited member of the Better Business Bureau, under the elite provider status with Home Advisor, and they've racked up Best of South Jersey awards throughout their past. They contribute to multiple sport associations and are huge supporters of Williamstown football. Find them online at srahomeproducts.com. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is also sponsored by the NJFOA South Officials Association. Are you passionate about football? Don't wait. Become a part of the NJFOA South Officials Association and join them to help officiate high school football games. With a diverse community of more than 250 members, they proudly oversee every high school football game in South Jersey, setting the standard for officiating in the state. By joining the chapter, you will become part of a team that upholds the highest standards in the game. They are more than just officials. They're advocates for sportsmanship, integrity, and guardians of player safety, champions of fair play. They offer the proper training to ensure you're ready to make the calls and uphold the values. Ready to put on the stripes and join the team? Visit www.njfoasouth.org and hit Join Us to register now. That's www.njfoa-south.org and hit Join Us to register now. Elevate your love for the game and become a football official with NJFOA South. Welcome back, New Jersey football fans, to the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show. We saw Chris Baker in here in the chat, checking in from Paul to 6. That game is currently 10-7. Camden Catholic leads their arch rival. You can listen also on WIP. The game is being broadcast live if you're watching this live, but you'd rather listen to us, of course. That's why you're here. Other games for Turkey Day around South Jersey: Atlantic City and Holy Spirit. The best matchup in terms of record, I would say, you got Atlantic City at 8-3. They fell in the South Jersey or the Central Jersey championship game to Washington Township. They're at Spirit, who's 9-2, who lost last week in the semifinals of the non-public B tournament. That game's at 10 a.m. Camden and Eastside, the battle for the turkey. The Whip Wilson Trophy. Camden's 8-3. Eastside's 0-10. This is at Mike Rozier Stadium, 10:30 a.m. Millville, we talked about them at 9-3. They're at Vineland, Catone Stadium, and the longest rivalry, I think, around. Vineland's 5-4. That game's at 10:30. Gloucester Catholic, Battle of the Holy City, 10:30 a.m. Gloucester comes in at 3-7. The Rams of Gloucester Catholic at 2-6. Clayton and Pittman, the 99th edition of this rivalry. Clayton's 5-3-1. Pittman's 7-2. This game's at 10:30. It's at Pittman. Haddon Township 5-3. At Audubon 2-7, 11 a.m. And Haddon Heights at 4-7 heads to Haddonfield at 11. The Haddons are 6-4. Not a lot of Turkey Day games left. We've seen how Turkey Day games have affected the state finals schedule. We have two teams that are in the championship who play on Turkey Day. You got Phillipsburg in Group 4 and Shabazz in Group 2. Shabazz will play Weequahic tomorrow morning in the Soul Bowl. And Phillipsburg heads up to Lafayette to play against Easton, their longtime rival, the biggest game for them every season. They also have a state championship. So let's talk about state championships here. We're going to start with Group 1. This is a game. It's Friday at MetLife Stadium at 5 p.m. The schedule, we'll talk about the schedule a little bit, I'm sure, today, John and Mac. It's an interesting one. But Group 1, you got Glassboro's 12-0. Cedar Grove's 13-0. Cedar Grove won the North 2 Group 1 bracket. Excuse me. They beat Wallkill Valley 38-6, Verona 42-14, New Providence 35-14, and won the North State Semi 52-21 over Butler. They're looking for their first state championship in program history. So is Glassboro. And you know what? Glassboro won over Woodstown last week. I was there 36-0. Jack O'Connell did a nice job at quarterback, but Kenny Smith was the story. I mean, he looked like Gale Sayers, back and forth all over the field. 17 carries, 219, 2 touchdowns. Tasheen Butler, 15 total tackles, a forced fumble. Maurice Davis, 1 sack and a pick 6. Blowout from the beginning. You had a Glassboro team that scored, had kind of an accidental onside kick, recovered it, scored again. Had a purposeful onside kick right after that, got it, scored again. They were up 22-0. The first quarter wasn't even over yet, but the game certainly was in the rain. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's go through some of the stat leaders here for both of these teams. Stephen Paradiso, quarterback of Cedar Grove, one of the best around. 220 of 343 on the year, 3,500 yards, 40 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's also run for 8 touchdowns. Jackson Maurice, 89 receptions, 1,700 yards receiving, 21 touchdowns. Also ran for 5 touchdowns. And Nick Russo got the hat at Battle at the Beach for his performance against Shalleck. I think they won that game 41-3. Tight end, 70 receptions, 785 yards, 11 touchdowns. Also had 3 interceptions on defense. Michael Canarelli on defense, 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 80 total tackles. And Connor Kearney, 3 sacks, 8 for loss, 8 tackles for loss, 145 total tackles. We know what Glassboro's done. You got Brandon Simmons, the center of that line. I mean, he's about as good as it comes. 17 sacks, 34 tackles for loss, 119 total tackles, 2 fumbles recovered. And he opens things up for guys like Butler, for Gravener, for the Sabb brothers on the back end to get things done as well. Amari Sabb, 1,000 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns, also ran for 4. Xavier Sabb, 43 receptions, 774 yards, 11 touchdowns. He has 5 interceptions on defense. Last year, Glassboro got to this game. Mountain Lakes handed it to them, really. I think it was 24-6. Mountain Lakes controlled the game. They had a guy, tight end, I think his name was DeZamba, very similar to Nick Russo in style of play, a defensive end, tight end kid who does it all. Contrast in styles on this game, though. What do we think is going to happen? Look, these two teams were kind of destined from the beginning. And thanks, John O'Donnell. Happy Thanksgiving to you. You know I got my Hokie tie on. We got to beat the Wahoos on Saturday. Contrast in styles. Cedar Grove averages a hair under 43 points per game. Their lowest points scored this year is 27. Their closest game was 17 points at Group 2 Caldwell, traditional power. Glassboro gave up 63 points all season, an average of 5.25. The most they've allowed is 12 in a game, and their closest game, they won 2 by 10 points. One team they beat by 10 was Shalleck. They played them again in the playoffs and beat them by a lot more than that, John. How do you break this down? You know both teams pretty well. I think you've seen Cedar Grove about the beach. You know what they bring to the table. It's offense versus defense.
Yeah, I think, Glassboro, you named all their great players. Smith, Sobbs, Butler on defense, Simmons, Brandon Simmons, who we referenced a number of times over the past 2 years. Both programs have been building for this moment. Had a chance to speak to the Cedar Grove guys just to kind of get their take on, some of their better guys and, obviously preparing for the show. And I feel like the thing they pointed out is, in 2021, they went undefeated. They won the North 1 Bowl. Salem won the South 1 Bowl. And most of these guys that are seniors were freshmen on that team. So they've been a part of, that winning tradition for the last 4 years. A lot of them are 3-year starters, including the quarterback, including the wideout, the tight end. They have a couple linemen that, nobody really knows, but they're household names for their program. And, I asked Coach today when I spoke to him, I said, Coach, everyone says, hey, air raid offense, 42 touchdown passes, 3,500 yards for the quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, he probably owns every program record. And Cedar Grove, just like Glassboro, they're a great program. So, he's a Cedar Grove alum. He played on a state championship team his senior year. And I asked him, I said, Coach, where does this team stack up with your top Cedar Grove teams? And he said, Coach, it's funny. He said, we got a lot of, alumni on staff, and we joke about it all year in the locker room where this team, stacks up. And, really, he says, we think we're as good as we've ever been, especially offensively. They're air raid. I said, what does that mean, Coach? How much are you throwing the ball? He said, throwing the ball 60% of the time.
Yep.
In high school football, Mac, I mean, that's
like 80.
That's unheard of.
That's like, right, no doubt.
So 60% of the time, and they have the lead a lot, so you figure most of those runs are coming late in the game.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at Glassboro's schedule, for as dominant as they've been, and I know that Diamond Division very well. I haven't been in it, pretty much my whole career until this year. There wasn't, really any experienced quarterback play this year in the pass game. So this is going to be the most dynamic offense that Glassboro has faced. And I'm sure it'll be up for the challenge.
And he dishes it too. I mean, It's not like he doesn't have one guy. When you're an air raid type offense and you have a tight end with 70 receptions, what's that tell you? He's told, look, I don't know these cats like you do, but he's told, look this, look that. You don't have that. You got him. Like that's his safety blanket right there. That's his Travis Kelce, fill in the blank, George Kittle, whatever. Having a tight end, running a stick route, running a 6-8 yard something right there, get open, find space, because Glassboro's going to have to show the way they're going to do some different things with this kid.
I think in the Battle of the Beach, I thought, Mark, you gave the hat out. Who'd you give to number
Russo.
one? Russo.
Yeah.
So you gave it to Russo, the tight end. I thought he was the best player in that game.
Yeah.
Because, he's big. He's
on both sides of the ball.
He's 6'2", 6'3", 225, 230, playing D end, going on the tight end, shutting stuff down. I think that, hey,
Coach, he's got a third of the receptions. He got 220 complete passes, 70 to a tight end.
When I see the team too, though, you see a lot of guys on Glassboro that can make plays, but they've been. I mean, I think Kenny Smith's gotten like 95% of the carries since the last 5-6 games, since they went up against Shalleck in the regular season. And I think Cedar Grove's the complete opposite. They got 5 guys that have about 300 yards rushing. They spread it around. So I think there's no doubt that, hey, because Glassboro have the D-backs to take away number one, they do absolutely. But Cedar Grove thinks they're a complete team. And they have these role player guys that we don't know about that can make plays too.
Yeah, of course.
I like the fact that Glassboro could play man-to-man. I mean, you
100%.
got Sad brothers out there.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I mean, now let's define this game a little bit differently. This is the air raid. I get that, and I know that the concepts Cedar Grove are playing with on offense, they're not dink and dunk. They're not swing pass. I mean, they're matriculating the ball down the field, like you said, Mac. He's reading that defense. He's really, in my opinion, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but of all the teams I've seen this season, it's been a lot of games. I think Jalen Parker's played the best quarterback I've seen. And I think that this young man, Paradiso, is number 2. I think he's the second best quarterback I've seen this year passing the ball.
Listen,
he's very, very good. And Glassboro, you know what they're going to try. They're going to want to get interior pressure with Mr. Simmons. And if he can't get there, if he's doubled or tripled sometimes, they're going to look to Gravener. And they're going to look to their guy Butler in the middle there when somebody hits a second level to lay the wood.
So now, it's the old, this is the chess match, right? Are you going to play? Are you going? First of all, is Glassboro going to slow it down? Are they going to go? Are they going to have heavy doses of Kenny and saying, you know what, we're going to control the football. We're going to set the tone. And look, they're not nervous about getting behind anybody. They can score, in a play or two. And then the question is, when you go matchups in man, right? I'll get a little geeky. Where if you line up the tight end in empty, tight end's 3 probably from the count. So who's on tight? Who's on in man? Who's on 3? Unless you're playing if you're playing man free, you 6. And those numbers, and if you can get the earlier, if you can get to that quarterback in 4, that allows you to play a little more press man.
And I'll tell you
with security.
Mark, you were at the game Friday, right?
Yes, I was.
Amari Saab, Saab, he could line up in the shotgun behind that big offensive line and run Wildcat and probably ran back and forth for about 400 yards in that game. So when I think back to Cedar Grove and Salem 2 years ago, Cedar Grove hit some plays on Salem. I think the final was like 50-20, but it came down to Salem's physicality. Salem was just bigger with Ja'Kai Coates and the Smith brothers, and they just ran over Cedar Grove. So from a defensive standpoint, if we could talk about Cedar Grove's air raid offense for days, but can they hold up defensively against what is a very big and strong and fast Glassboro team?
Well, we've talked about, Coach, you and I, and about this time of year being able to run, being able to stop the run, the physicality, to your point, right? Can that offensive line is used to going backwards a lot, right? Kick slide. And then in turn, when they play best of ones versus ones ish in practice, are they seeing what the downhill world that Glassboro is used to doing? And that's going to be the question. Can they? You hit it a couple minutes ago. Yeah. Who's going to win up front?
They're complete opposite teams, really, in a lot of ways. I mean, I think Glassboro's loaded on the outside, great, different, dynamic offensively. Strong offensive line, dominant defensive line, don't give up much on the run, can pound the ball. Cedar Grove's like your Pac-10 air raid, scoring 50 points a game, but they're going to be tested for the first time in the trenches in ways they haven't been tested.
It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy.
And we saw how much that played a factor in that Winslow Millville game. How much will the weather play a factor?
The other thing here, too, is when you mentioned Russo and what he can do, whatever linebacker is covering him in that situation, Mac, is I've seen Glassboro's linebackers. They're pretty. They can run. They can cover. They can do pretty much just about anything.
Well, they're dudes,
and there's no question they're dudes. I think the Glassboro reminds me a lot of the Eagles, really, this year. You got Kenny Smith, who the addition to the team the dimension he's provided is similar to what Saquon's added to the Eagles. I mean, he's taken it to another level.
Just, go-to guy.
Defensive tackle, I look at Simmons. He might not have the biggest game statistically, but watch Jalen Carter get double-teamed and what it opens up for everybody else. It reminds me of that type of thing. So we will see. That's at MetLife at 5 p.m. on Friday, the Group 1 state championship. The first year of the state championships, Woodbury won it. The second year, last year, Mountain Lakes beat Glassboro. So Glassboro is back.
One thing I'll say, historically, we love Group 1 South football.
Yeah, no
Whether it's
question.
Paulsboro, Woodbury, Glassboro, and then, Pennsgrove, Salem, et cetera. Group 1 football down here is a pride.
Yeah,
Is
no
a
question.
point of pride. But you're seeing these North Jersey teams, Mountain Lakes, Butler hasn't gotten there yet, but they're very good historically. Now Cedar Grove, and they're stretching out and coming down there and playing these teams because they know in that state final they're going to see a dynamic team that they would like to get better for, prepare for, hopefully at some point during the race. And for Cedar Grove, it may not have been this year against Shalleck. It may have started 2 years ago against Salem.
I would say 100%.
getting ready for this moment.
If I'm a betting man, Cedar Grove's coach is thinking back this week a lot to the Salem game, and he's comparing what they saw on the field that game to what they could see this weekend, not what they've seen necessarily to this point this season.
Those kind of games help these guys in this moment coming up, no doubt about it.
No question. In Group 2, Wednesday at Rutgers at 4 p.m., you got Shabazz at 10-2 versus Rumson Fairhaven, who's undefeated. Shabazz looking for their first state title, and so is Rumson. Shabazz beat Caldwell 36-33, Westwood 14-6, Bernards 28-14, and they beat Hanover Park in the state semi 8-7. All close games. Shabazz has kind of had the Cinderella run here. Beat the last 2 state champs in Westwood and Caldwell on the way. Their top stat leaders, Jalen Klein, the running back, 967 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. Rumson's lost 2 consecutive state finals in heartbreaking fashion. They have rolled through the playoffs to beat Spotswood 48-0, Delram 56-28, Wall 38-14, and they won the state semi last week over Point Pleasant Borough 44-10. 0-0 Tuitt quarterback has done it all for them for a while now. This year he's 182 of 254, 2,800 yards, 25 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He's carried it 42 times for 177 yards and 8 touchdowns. What do you think? Is this the year Rumson gets over the hump, John?
Yes.
Yep.
I think the 3 best teams, and I said this, and not a knock on Shabazz. A lot of people before the year were picking Shabazz before the group enrollments came out as the team to go to North One. They traditionally North One program.
Yeah.
They lost to Mountain Lakes last year in a sectional final, or I believe state semifinal, something like that. But anyway, so Shabazz bumps up to 2, kind of the Cinderella story out of North 2, win a lot of close games, and they're going to run into a juggernaut. I feel comfortable saying that Rumson is the biggest favorite out of all 5 public schools. I think the 3 best teams, as I've said on the show the last couple of weeks, Camden, Point Burrell, and Rumson. And Rumson has come out of this bracket, South 2, and they just dominated everybody.
They've hardly broken a sweat.
They're really good. I've watched them twice on film, preparing for my own games, and the quarterback is solid. They're not afraid to throw it. They're not afraid to pound it down your throat.
They do everything.
They're a pro-style, offense in the gun.
Yep.
But they trust the quarterback.
Yeah.
They'll throw the ball into tight windows, and risk reward, and because of their ability to make plays, they're seeing the rewards.
Yeah.
And they're scoring points against some really good defenses.
Really good program. I think they're due.
I think somebody said 8 straight sectional finals or something,
12,
or 12.
Yeah.
As Dwayne points out, Klein's a transfer from St. Peter's. Those stats are just in 7 games, and he's had a great year for Shabazz. Shabazz, they love being the underdog. It's very clear. You look at the path that they've made on the way there, and they're going to play. They're also going to have a shorter time off as Rumson as they play Thursday morning against Week Wake. I think that Rumson, in the fashion that they've lost the last 2 years, it would be pretty tough to go back and not get the job done. But hey, you know what? That's why they play the games, and we shall see.
This looks like the most complete team they've had, just based off the schedule they played and the way they've handled everybody in front of them.
Yeah, and I think too they've really. We saw what Point Pleasant Borough was able to do winning the sectional final against Camden, and that was mighty impressive. For Rumson to beat them by 34 points is, every game is different, but that shows a lot on paper. Group 3, Mainland, 10-3. They had a big game last week at Somerville. It was probably the game of the weekend, I'd say, in terms of the finish. Excuse me. Although, Bergen, St. Joe Montville, that went to overtime. That was a great game, too. But Mainland wins this thing 36-35 in overtime at Somerville. They get a 2-point conversion to win the game in overtime. Franchini to Jake Blum, corner of the end zone, sprint out. Great play, a play that will live on in mainland history for a long, long time. Winning on the road there and shocking the Pioneers, who had been unbeaten. John Franchini in that game, 13 of 16, 214, and a touchdown. He also ran for one. Rocco DiBiase ran for 139 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jake Blum, had 10 receptions, 175 yards, and a touchdown. Mainland, they had an awful lot of yards in this game. The offense was clicking. On the season, Franchini's thrown for 2,100, 20 touchdowns. DiBiase, 1,000 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns. Blum, 1,200 yards receiving, 13 touchdowns. And Cashie's a secret weapon. Kicker only missed 1 extra point. He's 3 for 3 on field goals. Old Tapan, the last time they were there, they beat Delsey in 2022, 43-14. They beat Pascack Valley in a rematch of a game they lost earlier in the season in the North State Semi. Alex Arecchio, 10 carries, 70 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nick Rossi, 121 yards rushing and a touchdown. Zachary Maselli, 65 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Maselli on the year at quarterback, 126 and 187, 2,060 yards, 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's run for 7. Nick Rossi's run for 11, almost 1,000 yards. Arecchio, 437, 11 touchdowns. Also caught 42 balls, 624, and 6 more touchdowns. Shane Small, 5 sacks on defense, 6 tackles for loss, 37 total tackles. Old Tapan, like I said, beat Delsey in 2022 in Group 3. Delsey won it last year in Group 3. Delsey lost this year to Somerville in Group 3. Mainland is now in Group 3. They won the Group 4 state final last year. I think it was about, I don't remember the exact score. I think it was like 672-0. What do you think about this one, John? You're familiar with both teams. You got Old Tapan 11-1 Sunday at Rutgers, 1 p.m. Mainland.
Well, I think Mainland, coming off the big win on the road, bad weather at first, taking a long ride to Somerville. We talked about it, probably a 2-hour trek with traffic on a Friday to play an undefeated team, Somerville, proud program. And, came down to the end, had a 28-14 lead in the fourth quarter, and Somerville battled back. Got it to overtime, scored first, and Mainland, made the decision to go for 2 in the win. It took 36 points, and I feel like Mainland's got it clicking offensively. You look at who they played during the regular season, whether it was Winslow, Algies, Millville, right down the road. They played, some teams that are probably not as good in this playoff run, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We talk about Winslow and Millville maybe being 2 of the best defenses in South Jersey. And Mainland scored a lot of points. And I think even though they're not as good as they were last year, they're very dynamic. They spread the ball around. The quarterback is a 3-year starter who, Mark, you've called, maybe the most underrated player in South Jersey.
Very underrated.
He's got just about 40 wins as a starting quarterback through 3 years. I just think, if I'm Mainland, I think when I talked to Coach Folsom last week, he said, hey, if we score 20, we're going to need to score 28 points against the Somerville team. And he told me earlier in the week, he loves Old Tapan's offense. And it's going to be one of them games where, Mainland's probably going to need to score 30 points. And if they do, they got a great chance to win.
Mainland, look, we've seen them. They're just consistent, right? They just do everything right. The little things add up to the big things. And when it comes to playoff football, you got Franchini who just week in and week out, this another 13 for 16 for 200. He'll throw the ball probably 12, 13 times on Sunday. He'll complete 8 or 9. He'll have a touchdown pass, run for it. We kind of know his stat line before even the game starts.
What was he last week, Mark?
He was 13 for 16 for 214 yards. So he probably threw for a little more than normal.
And the 2-point doesn't count in that.
Yeah,
right.
14 to 17.
So he's 14 for 17.
14 for 17.
And look, we saw that. I'm watching the 2-point. I'm watching on TV, and kind of, we were talking about a pre-show, like in the gut is like, okay, man, timeout. They're gonna go for 2 here, right? And he sprints out. They got the nice flood pattern, and they got the seal block going. Just XYZ 1, 2, 3 football, a play they probably run 50 times a week, and boom. And And he had so many different outs. I watch, it's funny. I watched Toledo the other night. They were rolling out, sprinting out into this boundary, into a flood pattern. I was like, what's going on? Did it flip in the huddle or something? But Mainland sprints out to the field, gives the quarterback everything in front of him, has some options, hits his main receive, boom. Just a nice little.
It's empty, right? They empty in that play?
Yeah, they go empty. They
And
went double wing, and the wing is essentially like the sprint out back.
Right.
He pins the edge.
Yeah.
And they didn't get the edge. He had to throw the ball.
He didn't get.
They didn't get the edge. They actually. I like the call because they had ran that a couple times during the game, and he had ran for either first down or was getting 3-4 yards. He makes good decisions, man.
Yeah.
When you're 13 for 16. You're getting the ball to the right guy. And those guys are obviously catching the ball, but you're making good decisions.
Where he threw the ball, the only guy that could get his hands on it was Mainland.
It was a great route by
Blum.
It was Blum. And Blum was. It reminded
had a
me.
monster game.
Look, it reminded 10 receptions. It reminded me of like the throws that like a Brady would throw. That would be like the only guy. It's in the ground. It's 2 feet from the ground, and the only guy that's going to catch it is my guy and slide it into the post.
You know what it reminded me of? Because you're thinking Mainland, right? The dominant running game. Defending state champ, sprint out for 2, Nebraska, 84 Orange Bowl, Turner Gill,
right?
To Herbert Fryer, and Miami knocked it down. It's like, I'm thinking to myself, I said, man, what a great call. Sprint out, I didn't expect them to throw the ball. I'm thinking they're going to get a ball to DiBiase on the jet sweep. They've had a lot of success running the ball, but, just a great play. Empty set, they don't get the edge. He had no one else to go to.
No, and
he threw a perfect ball, great route, and they're going back to Rutgers.
Exactly.
But here's a point I want to touch on too that was interesting. Somerville predominantly went for 2 all year. At most of the times that they scored, they kicked all extra points on Friday night, which seems a little unusual. I'm not sure exactly. And also there was a roughing the kicker on a missed extra point overtime. It would have given them half the distance. Instead, they kicked again. It gave them half the distance, and they kicked again and made the extra point. Felt like Mainland would go for it for this fact, too. If you don't get it, if you kick the extra point, you go to second overtime. Now Somerville has the decision to make, and they now control the game. Mainland's defense did give up a lot. I think it was – I know it was the right call. I knew it was what they were going to do, and I really felt like they would throw to Blum, as reliable as he's been for this reason. Everybody and their mother would have their eyes on 21 DiBiase. And who's your secondary guy who might be able to find a spot? And it was Blum, who's had an incredible season. You said Franchini had 13 completions the other night. 10 of them were Blum.
I was a little surprised, over the course of the game, maybe because they're playing from behind. But I read the comments our viewers put in the chat, and they were telling us, hey, man, Somerville's a go-for-2 team. So I'm like, when are they going to go for 2? They score first to go up, take the lead after being down 28-14. So you're talking Somerville, 20 unanswered points, in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Yep.
They got all the momentum, and then they roughed the kicker that he missed the extra point, so they have to retry it. And I'm thinking, man, what an opportunity to go for 2. They don't do it. And Mainland was probably thinking, like I was thinking, hey, Somerville's getting hot on offense.
Yeah.
The defense got heavy legs. Playing a lot of guys 2 ways.
Right. And you gave up all. We
got to end this game now.
We got to end it now. I mean, I love the Mainland call off of the timeout. Coach Smith saying, hey, let's go for it. Let's get it done now. And look, something tells me that Somerville coaches are walking back to that coach's office going, the what's and coulds and shoulds, because when you take the penalty, and you go half the distance, and you are a go for 2 team. Again, I thought, but sometimes, when you're the home team, you're like, all right, let's play. Now that we caught up, let's play conservative.
Coach Smith made a heck of a call because, they have a great kicker. They have an all-South Jersey kicker. He's automatic as much as anybody.
47 for 48 on the year.
47 for 48. So to bring him back and say, you know what, guys,
we're going to go win.
We're going to put it in our quarterback's hands, and we're going to give it a shot.
Well, it's not taken away from Cashley. It was basically saying we're going to go win it.
That's a tough one for Somerville because you think about it, right? They got a couple stops. One was a fumble. They forced a fumble. They got 3 straight scores.
And a bad punt
and you're
snap,
walking
set
off.
Up the other side.
It's almost like you're in a basketball game and you're making all your shots, and they hit a buzzer beater beat. You're like, how did we lose? We did everything right down the stretch.
Right.
But, it's like a walk-off. It's just...
It was a classic finish to a classic game, really. And when you think about Chuck making that call, it was absolutely the right call because you control your destiny. You're the underdog. You're on the road. Defense, high scoring. you got, as they always say, you got 2 yards to get. And if you can't get 2 yards, do you deserve to win the game? And if you can, you're going to the state final. The money's on the table. Or fortune favors the bold, my friend.
Oh,
So
so and I always like this too. I always like the commercial. I always like the coaches who are run guys. How funny it is that how often run guys do sprint out in a 2-pointer to a flood, because even though they're run guys, we all want to get. I was yelling at my wife. I said, "We're sprinting out here." She's like, "Right?" I go, "We're sprinting out," because you got the athlete on the flank. You got the flood pattern. Now they did set the edge, which I don't think, because at that point,
well, they took away the run option. He had to make a throw.
Correct.
They did a good job of
Correct.
containing the quarterback on that play.
When you sprint out to the wide side of the field, you really put a lot of stretch on the defense. You put a lot of you make kids have to make decisions. Who's going to set the edge? Who's going to create? What are you in? Are you man?
But I like the simplicity of the play too.
Oh yeah.
There's 2 things that have to happen. He's got to catch the snap, run out, and make the throw on the timing route to his best receiver, who has a great rapport with. There's no play. There's no motions. No play action. There's no developing, weaving through. It's just boom, boom, game over.
And Mac, you said it. They, since June, and obviously going back to last year, we'll just say since June. How many times have they had the quarterback, the center, and one wide out running pat and go, and then a on-air pass Skelly? They've ran that 1,000 times.
1,000.
And obviously he throws that ball really well.
Yes.
So do what you do well.
That's what I mean.
And that was the great opportunity they took advantage of.
All right, so this is Wednesday at Rutgers at 7 p.m. as
Sunday
is the next game. I'm sorry, Mainland is Sunday at 1 p.m.
So we'll talk about the schedule. What do you think of the schedule?
I'm not a fan of it, John, and let me tell you why. You got.
Do you like the 4 o'clock Wednesday game?
4 o'clock. Let me first speak about Wednesday.
Doing it again.
Wednesday is an absolute necessity. It's the final day. Everybody knows if you play a Turkey Day team, the last day of the year is the 4th. It's the last day they can do it. Winter sports begin on the 11th. That we're going to give more than a week. I understand it completely. It's just the way it is. Do I think a team should be playing a 4 on Wednesday? No, but I understand Thanksgiving Day, and I'm glad the sacrifice we've made to have state finals. Get it entirely. The other piece of it I don't understand, which somebody told me there were 4 games that have to be played at MetLife on Friday.
Apparently that's the contract.
Apparently that's the contract. And I don't like that contract to begin with because, let's just take a look at the state. You're going to have 7 state championships every year. You're going to have 7 of them. You're going to have 2 non-pubs, which predominantly you're going to have North Jersey teams playing each other from around that MetLife area who really like to play at MetLife. We know in the past.
They don't play on Thanksgiving,
Big
so
deal.
they're going to play.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. They can play there. The other ones, you're going to have a team from either the Shore, which we've had Rumson and Toms River North perform in all these state finals in groups 2 and 5, or you're going to have a team from traditionally South Jersey. I don't think there's too many teams other than Somerville who are pushed too far up into North Jersey or adjacent. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that you would lock in 4 games, 2 of which are going to be public teams in MetLife, when there's a Rutgers alternative that's a little bit better for the entire state, which is where 5 of your 7 games are going to be performed anyway. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's the way it is. And I don't think it was a great idea, but I don't make those decisions. I do know I will be at MetLife on Friday at 5 p.m., and I'll be at Rutgers Sunday at 1 p.m., and I'll be at Rutgers Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Put a lot of miles on the car.
Well, it's a lot of miles. I have a decent car. It's newer. It's nice.
Shorter
I'm
than
not
going
too
to Virginia,
worried about it. But,
so,
that's just.
I think last year, for as perfect as last year was, so last year you had all 3 games on Sunday, the South Jersey teams. Went up, myself, my son, took a couple other people. We watched Glassboro play in the morning against Mountain Lakes. We watched Mainland play. And then we stayed and watched Delsey play. And because Delsey was doing so well, we were heading for home at halftime. Okay, I thought it was perfect for this year. Obviously Winslow, we knew they were going to have to play on Wednesday. To play Glassboro, Mainland, and Toms River North back to back to back. Put the 3 publics together. It's on Sunday at Rutgers,
right,
like it was last year. For the fans, that would have been the perfect situation. I understand, I guess what they're saying is there has to be 4 games at MetLife. We played at MetLife in 2018. We finished off our undefeated season there, 13-0. As a coach, I love playing at MetLife for the venue and the atmosphere of playing in an NFL stadium. But as a fan, it stinks. And I can tell you some other drawbacks. There's no warm-up area. Rutgers, they give you the bubble.
Right.
There's no extra locker rooms because you're not going in the Jets and the Giants locker room. You get to visit in the locker room. So if you get the team that plays the Jets, you get the visit in the locker room, the team that plays the Giants locker room. So you have to wait for that team to get out. And it's a very abbreviated warm-up, 20 minutes. The games feel very rushed back to back to back. It's not ideal from a operation standpoint of trying to get warmed up. It's unlike any other game. I think it's a big advantage for the teams. If I'm Cedar Grove, okay, for example, or who's a team playing Union City, I'm warming up in my field, hopping on the bus, going 20 minutes down the road,
100%,
and getting right into the. And you've already done your warm-up. That doesn't work for the South Jersey teams. And so just another obstacle. And playing on Black Friday. I'm sure all the Glassboro people and Tom's River North people will be there, but I just think there's a big home field advantage, and I hope moving forward we get away from this having to play 4 games at MetLife because it's not great for our people down here.
Oh, last time they wouldn't even let you in the stadium, John. You remember that?
Yeah,
you guys sat on the bus a little bit longer, I think.
They told us you couldn't even come. Don't come until 45 minutes for your game because you can't get in early. Well, we showed up, because we're, coach, we're sticking the routine.
There was a lot of traffic.
We got there and we said, hey,
coach, you got to play early, right?
I tell you what, the long bus ride there, there's nothing more enjoyable than a nice long bus ride home if you win.
When you win.
So it's a great experience.
In 07 and 08, when I was in Holy Cross, back-to-back years, we had the 10 a.m. game at Rutgers, which is nice because they let you warm up on the field. But to your point, in 07, Charlie Perillo's head coach, we show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours prior. They didn't know. They were like, you're not supposed to be here. But by the time we were in the locker room.
Gates were locked in.
No, we were already in. We were doing what we needed to do. But 08, they put the barracks up. They didn't let us drive in until 9 o'clock.
Mainland's loving life. Mainland's going to go to Rutgers. Mainland's going to go to Rutgers. They're going to set up their drills. They're going to be on the field. They're going to be in the locker room, undressed, then getting dressed in the locker room, coming out. It's going to be like being at home for them in Old Tappan. So big advantage for those guys. It's a shame that the teams playing at Rutgers don't get that same experience.
Well, let me say this. Kevin Minnick is in here, and he knows the ins and outs of a lot of things. He said, they want to maximize the use of MetLife as much as they can, the state, which we see that. But he says, too, has the NJFCA had any input into the decisions? Has the group voiced an opinion? I don't know if that's part of the consideration process or not, John, if the Coaches Association does, or if, it's just determined. But I would hope that moving forward there is some type of determination made based on what could work the best for the most amount of people. To me, the fact that Glassboro is playing at 5 p.m. on Black Friday at MetLife versus playing Sunday at Rutgers, that would have made much more sense. But again, I get that they wanted to maximize the use. They also have a game kicking off at 8 p.m. on Friday in that venue. When
they did it at MetLife, and I'm sure Friday will be a tale of itself. You don't know. The atmosphere was great. The way they set it up is great. It's a big stadium, right? But they kind of force the fans to sit in certain sections.
Certainly, yeah.
So they pack it in. It gets very loud in there, and it feels more like a high school game than at Rutgers. Rutgers is big. It's a little more open air. It can feel a little empty when you put 10,000 people even in there. I do like the atmosphere at MetLife. I just wonder from a logistical standpoint. Like for example, we're playing DePaul Catholic and. Who are they playing? Pope John. We're playing DePaul and Pope John at 10 a.m. We're playing it's 11 a.m.?
11 a.m.
So it's 11-2-5. So we're playing a state title game at 11 a.m. between, two monster programs. DePaul, arguably top 3 in the state.
And then you get the Bosco game at 8.
So it's just, I don't know. I just think there's some things that can be worked out. But hey, it is what it is.
They're going to play the game on a 100-yard field one way
or
another.
I was just wanting to piggyback off of that. From a fan's perspective, you're traveling. You were at Pennsgrove on a Friday, Black Friday, going all the way up to catch a 5 o'clock game, New York traffic. Logistically, from a fan, that makes me not even want to travel. I'd rather stay at home and watch it on a stream if I could.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's where I feel like for the Cedar Grove people, it's great. For the diehard Glassboro people, it's great. For the casual people like myself,
Right.
in terms of they don't have somebody on the team, they would go watch the game if it was
South
feasible.
Jersey, South Jersey, South
If you
Jersey.
put all three on Sunday, I'll go there, stay all day.
Exactly.
And but
Right.
so for the fan, the football fan that that loves the sport all year, they miss out when it goes to these venues.
Well, that's the point I was kind of making. If they could somehow do it back to back, as a casual fan that likes to see 2 or 3 of those teams, I may stay overnight and just wake up, get a hotel and then go watch the game. But being as though they're kind of split up,
Right, you can't even.
I think I see what they're doing, Rod. They put the Group 1 game, which in theory should be the lowest attended, before the game they feel like will be the most attended.
Yeah.
But Toms River North, you're going for your 3rd straight state title. You can't play, the pinnacle game at night at a the prime time.
A decent
You're playing
drive.
at 1 o'clock on a Black Friday when people's all hungover from the turkey. I don't know.
And everybody's online shopping,
Yeah.
Look, I mean, we could debate. We could debate stadium, non-stadium, MetLife, Rutgers. You've coached in both.
Yeah,
look. I didn't hate Rowan. I mean, it's
not big enough, I don't think.
It's not, but it depends how many games you're going to have that, And
I don't think it's big enough, but I did hear some great comments about, unlike in a lot of states where they do have to rotate it because it's so big between, say, Eastern Texas and West Texas. Or,
okay.
I did hear some good comments about, there should be some, consideration to, if it's a MetLife one year, North Jersey's home team, at the very least, we should be at Rutgers next year or somewhere closer. For the South Jersey fans, that's my opinion.
I thought the way they did the sectional finals was good. Keene was involved. Rowan was involved. The other thing that's unique to New Jersey versus some other places as well is that you have areas where the coverage or the closeness between group size of schools is the same, right? Or is different. You could have Group 1 schools and Group 4 schools down the street from each other. A lot of times that population density, the schools around schools are going to be Group 4 or Group 5.
Yeah, they're all big schools.
They're not going to be. Then Group 1's going to be like in Virginia. Group 1's way out in the mountains, and there isn't one in Northern Virginia because they're all Group 4, Group 5, Group 6. Same with Tidewater and Richmond's Group 4, Group 3. So
it's a unique state.
But you don't. It's a unique situation where you got Glassboro. Let's say Delsea and Williamstown were in state finals. Well, how far are those 3 schools apart? I mean, they all know each other. They're all included, but they're different groups, so it'd be hard to break it up and do it that way. I think for the most part, the state's done a lot of things right in terms of getting us to the state finals. I just think the fact that, we split between MetLife and Rutgers, and this one's going to be here, but we got to have 4 here, we can have 1 here. And I just think, some uniformity would be nicer in that situation.
I wonder, we're down to, right? We're going to talk, I think, a little bit about some Thanksgiving Day games. We're down to, when I looked at it, counting Paul VI and Cam McCaffrey
Paul VI
tonight.
is winning that game at halftime, 21-10, by the way.
Okay. So I think it was 18 games statewide, 18 games this weekend statewide. That's when I was coming up, Mac, when you were coming up, everybody played on Thanksgiving.
There's 200 of them.
Yeah, there was 200 of them, right? And that was the end of the season. So I wonder for a Shabazz, right? How does Shabazz feel, even though it's a great rivalry game, how do they feel about playing it depending on what happens on Wednesday? I know Easton and Phillipsburg is a different monster because even if Easton is in the playoffs, they'll play on 2 days rest to play that game.
Certainly.
Right. Millville Vineland's not going anywhere right now. That's the oldest rivalry in the state. And Millville has battled through that the last couple of years and played in the state final. But I just wonder, wouldn't the state rather probably have the Group 2 and the Group 4 game wrapped up Sunday at Rutgers? But that Thanksgiving Day game provides a little obstacle.
Yeah. There's other factors, obviously.
Yeah.
They've done the best they can to accommodate without telling teams you got to get rid of it because you can't do that. I mean, they're still going to leave that as an optional situation, and you know what? That's the way
I just wonder, you look at Woodstown, Salem. You look at teams that made the decision, hey, we are getting rid of it because we see the obstacle that comes with being in the mix for a state title and having to play this Thanksgiving Day game. Seneca, Cherokee ended it this year, right? So a lot of teams have gone away because of the way it's interrupted the end of the season.
Here's the other piece too, John, and this is what I would say. Why, with so many teams that make the playoffs, and now if you miss the playoffs, you can schedule however many games you want, really.
Up to 12, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Why can't the regular season be a week shorter? And what's the difference between 7 games and 8 games, or 8 games and 9 games? I mean, is it really that much different?
So you want the regular season to be shorter?
If you gave it a week shorter, you ended it the weekend before Thanksgiving. If state finals were last weekend. What are we really missing? I mean, I think the playoff teams mostly make the playoffs. If you don't make it, you can schedule games, keep playing.
Most teams aren't playing Thanksgiving games. Most teams aren't playing the consolation games you saw this year.
Right.
They've gone away from, other than the teams that are playing on Thanksgiving. I saw Gloucester, Haddon Heights played a couple games. They're not.
Right,
they're not picking up games.
Right. If you're not making the playoffs, you're done first week in November now, right? I mean,
you're done around Halloween weekend.
Yeah, you're done. You're done.
It's between October 28th and November 1st.
And there's some. I don't know. There's some merit to that, because if you are getting ready for a wrestling season, a football, basketball season, et cetera, you do get that full almost a month off for those kids.
We gave
Clayton had 6 weeks off, 5 weeks off before their game against Pittman.
Yeah, Pittman and Clayton have played a couple consolation games each, or 1 or 2 for Pittman, and about 5 weeks off.
Right. That gets a little. That's tough.
It's hard, and I know there's a lot of traditions, and these games are so old. Like, you're coming up on Clayton Pittman, I think it's going to be 100 next year, 100 games. Mm-hmm. But there comes a point where it's like it's tough to keep playing. It's almost like the season between the playoffs and Thanksgiving is almost as long as the regular season.
Yeah.
Except for you don't have games to play.
I just say, what's
tough?
What would be the detriment in that?
You want to start the playoffs a week earlier.
Or start the season a week earlier. I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. In different areas, they start mid-August, I guess it is, and they're done before the Thanksgiving stuff. So if you wanted to technically keep that Thanksgiving Day game, like Mark said, you're done last week. Yeah, the state's wrapped up, and then this week you can keep your classic games.
Rob, for example, Georgia. When are they done school though?
Well, they're usually typically done in May.
Yeah, right.
But they start in August.
They start
when they start.
They start when they start, right? So it's so in Jersey, you go to school till the 21st of June, and next thing you know, we're going to be practicing for football 5 weeks later.
I said that to a guy because I went to some Georgia games in years past in the playoffs, and great football state, and one of the best in the country. And I asked him, I said, man, how do you guys go to school in the middle of August? I'm like down to Jersey, well, not really down to shore because I'm in camp. He said, you know what, Coach? He said, if we're going to be in there every day practicing and playing games, I said, we might as well go to school and get out of school in May.
Right.
And I said, you know what? That's a great idea.
Right. If you're an athlete, if you're a football player, you don't care.
The games have gotten away from that. Well, we're going to start after Labor Day. And the end of the season has moved up. And that even makes, the Thanksgiving more of a problem in terms of fitting in with everything.
Matt Ulmer is correct in the chat as well. There's too much tourism at the shore in Jersey. You look at all the different shores and how many people have shore homes, whatever, who are making decisions to. Of course, they want.
It's economic issue.
That's the fact.
You told Ocean City that they got to start football camp in the last week of July. They're like, we can't do that.
Mac, we're pretty much here all summer anyway, Monday to Friday. I mean,
I know.
Well, whatever's working seems to be working pretty well for mainland. And they'll play
Mainland's managing the shore schedule pretty well.
All right, let's take one quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk Group 5. We'll talk Group 4. We'll take a quick look at the non-pubs. Then we'll get you to your turkey. So sit tight. Stay tuned for the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show's presenting sponsor is the West Jersey Football Coaches Association. The West Jersey Football Coaches Association was established to promote, improve, and unite football in South Jersey. And in less than 4 years, the association created the Battle at the Beach and dedicated itself to helping others. They've donated close to $80,000 to date to provide scholarships through the National Football Foundation and the Touchdown Club of Southern New Jersey. The group has also donated to the charity Philly Faces, which helps those in need of facial reconstruction surgery. Thank you to the West Jersey Football Coaches Association for their sponsorship of the show. South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is also sponsored by SRA Home Products. South Jersey, let me tell you about my friends over at SRA Home Products. SRA has been building sunrooms, pergolas, and patio covers for over 25 years. They built more than 9,000 projects in the Delaware Valley. I've had nothing but the best to say about Mike Foti in the time I've had the chance to be around him and his crew. SRA is a gold accredited member of the Better Business Bureau, under the elite provider status with Home Advisor, and they've racked up Best of South Jersey awards throughout their past. They contribute to multiple sport associations and are huge supporters of Williamstown football. Find them online at srahomeproducts.com. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is also sponsored by the NJFOA South Officials Association. Are you passionate about football? Don't wait. Become a part of the NJFOA South Officials Association and join them to help officiate high school football games. With a diverse community of more than 250 members, they proudly oversee every high school football game in South Jersey, setting the standard for officiating in the state. By joining the chapter, you will become part of a team that upholds the highest standards in the game. They are more than just officials. They are advocates for sportsmanship, integrity, and guardians of player safety, champions of fair play. They offer the proper training to ensure you're ready to make the calls and uphold the values. Ready to put on the stripes and join the team? Visit www.njfoasouth.org and hit Join Us to register now. That's www.njfoa-south.org and hit Join Us to register now. Elevate your love for the game and become a football official with NJFOA South. Welcome back, New Jersey football fans, to South Jersey Football Frenzy Show. I know many of you heard that last ad there about NJFOA South looking for volunteers to sign up and learn how to be an official, make some money next year. Please do so if you're interested. I know a lot of you guys out there and ladies out there are educated about the game. You know the players, you know all the ins and outs, and you want to be a part of the action. We could certainly use some officials. Please feel free to go to the NJFOA South website. I think it said what it was in there. Find that registration link, sign up. Class will be starting in the spring at West Deptford High School, where Coach Emel is the head coach. Thank you, Coach, for giving them a place to learn.
They've been going there a long time, and we welcome them because without the officials, we wouldn't be able to play the games. So I know they. You know, I had to ref our powder puff game last week.
How'd that go?
I did a great job, apparently, because you never notice a great official.
I did a great job.
And that's what they said. They said you did a great job because we didn't even notice there was a ref out there. Because I said, that's right.
You didn't enforce or adjudicate any rules?
No, I did. I controlled the game. So the senior girls dominated, and they wanted to snap the ball without the defense even being set because they weren't on the field. They were taking too long, and they wanted me to blow it in ready for play.
They're running no huddle. Substitution.
I said, come on, I hit the defense with a delayed game.
Yeah, okay.
Give them a break, you know. But
was the offense subbing?
Oh, they were no huddle, no mercy, man. They lit them up, but they had wristbands. The juniors were in trouble, so next year they're going to be ready. But we'll see.
All right, well,
let's get back to some real football.
Get out of powder puff.
Yeah.
Let's
Coach,
go
stop by every once in a while to help that out.
We got the Group 5 championship. This is going to be Friday at MetLife, 2 p.m. Toms River North, 13-0. Haven't lost to a public school in, I think, 38 attempts. They're going to face Union City's 11-1. Toms River North, this would be their third consecutive state championship. They own each of them that have gone out in Group 5. This is their path in the playoffs. They beat Bridgeton 55-6, Kingsway 21-14, RV 42-27. They beat Washington Township 27-10, in the semifinal last week. TJ Valerio, star quarterback, 126 of 173, 2,200 yards, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Also run for 781, 8 touchdowns. How about Union City? They're looking for their first state title. They won North 2 Group 5 bracket. They beat Newark Eastside 49-0. Bridgewater Raritan 61-0. And then the miracle against Passaic Tech, Union City, a wing T team. I think they drove down, scored a touchdown in less than 30 seconds or something like that to beat Passaic Tech, or some may know them as PCTI, 34-29. They beat East Orange in the North State Semi last week, and they did it with authority, 42-0. Top stat leader Mark Boyd, 140 carries, 1,455 yards, 24 touchdowns. I think they have another 1,000-yard rusher as well in that wing T attack. Toms River North, Union City. Real quick, guys, what do you think?
Well, I think we called it last week. We said Union City was a big favorite in their state semifinal game. Toms River North's been here 3 straight years. Got the top lineman who's, I think, committed to Notre Dame. To Rutgers if he didn't sign yet.
Yeah, Jalen Matthews.
So they got some stalwarts off that team, top wide receivers, some guys that have played the last couple years, been a part of that, that core run. The quarterback, even though TJ was the guy who was the starter the last 2 years.
Oh, Michael Ford.
Sorry. Michael Ford, he was the guy, but this guy came in, played in spurts, 2,200 yards. 26 touchdowns, 4 picks tells me they're going to take care of the ball, just like Rumson. And I feel like for the difference in the game for them last weekend beating Washington Township is that big offensive line just provides that quarterback so much time. And they get guys open and, you're going against a wing T attack. I think for Union City to win this game, another underdog moment, they just have to play perfect. 2,000-yard backs tells me they can move the ball, but you're a ball control team. You can't turn it over.
And it's hard.
It's hard. You have to play a perfect game to win.
It's hard. You have to, like where Union City, in their typical game, a drive might be, everybody says, oh, wing T can't score. Yeah, they can score fast. A typical drive might be 6-7 plays. They're probably going to have to put together a 10, 11. That you start to get 10, 11, 12 play drives at any level. It's extremely difficult because then you throw in, do you have a procedure? Do you have a drop snap? There's more, without the explosives, to do that. And North, look, you could say been there, done that. They've been there, they do that. I mean, North is not the bright lights. This is what they do. The third straight year, 2 in a row wins.
It seems like North's defense is playing really well. And even when they've given up points, RV had to do it through the air. Mm-hmm. Township couldn't get it done on the ground. A team that was really good up front.
I don't want to say can't. It's hard to run the ball.
They don't give up much on the ground.
No.
And their defense is very good. So I feel like style-wise, they match up really well with Union City.
Yeah, I think, too, when you look at Washington Township last week, they lost quarterback Cole Aquino to an injury early in that game. They had a backup, so you would figure it would be harder to run because Toms River probably loaded up against the run.
That just shows me they know how to stop the run. I think back to the big games I watched last year against PCIT. I don't know, it was like 15-0 or something like that. Millville at Battle of the Beach when I watched them. Washington Township at Battle of the Beach. People get enamored with their high-scoring offense, 600 points a couple times the last few years over the course of this season. But they play great defense, man, and they're really sound up front.
Yes.
Kevin Minnick points out Toms River North's been good for about 10 to 12 penalties a game. They've had problems with the laundry on the field. You can't do that in this game. I
covered the game last week. So
I think Union City is a team that really they've been really strong all year. I think their only loss was in the opener to a non-Pub A team, and to win 11 in a row. I think Union City has a really good shot.
They do have a shot, but to Coach's point, they got to play the perfect type game where Toms River North can shoot itself in the foot sometimes and recover from it. Like they do have a couple penalties, and next thing you know, North does North. And
I mean, hey, these games. I mean, hey, I'm going back in the vault a little bit. Mm-hmm. 2016, Toms River North came down to Rowan, number 3 in the state. Overall, number 1 public school. Millville was the underdog with Coach Dennis Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
Athletic team knocked them off, beat them pretty bad. I think it was like 21-7. Kind of dominated them with their athleticism. And, for as good as Toms River North has been, I don't know if Washington Township, RV, not a defensive team per se, or anybody they've seen at the shore is going to give them what Union City does matchup-wise.
I think
that's an interesting point.
I think when you look at these teams being, Kevin says, Blaze Bolin and Toms River North off the edge, the player watching this one. I think when you look at these teams, what we have in these matchups, Old Tappan had 1 loss. It was to Pascack Valley, and they thumped them last week. Mainland, 3 losses in the toughest division in the West Jersey League. They beat an undefeated Somerville. Toms River North 13-0. Again, Union City 11-1, lost to a non-pub. Winslow 13-0. Peaburg, we'll talk about that game. We talked about the undefeated matchup in Group 1. And in Group 2, Shabazz beating everybody on the way. and now facing undefeated Rumson. To me, there's no question we got the two best teams in these brackets. And for Union City and Toms River North, they're the two best Group 5 teams, and they're playing. And I think that's I like that the matchups are, really, really high resolution, basically. You're going to see some pretty darn good football from teams that they knew way back when they were championship caliber and that they could get here, really. Shabazz the one team that's upset some teams.
North has challenged themselves. We didn't get them in the Battle of the Beach this year, but they went out to Pennsylvania. They played Downingtown East on the road. Now, they ended up not having a great record, but they're a tough program. Thumped them the first game, week 0. So, if you look at Toms River North, it's like, is there ever such thing as a quiet 13-0? Like we don't see them during the regular season.
Right.
Even the last couple of weeks, people were talking, hey, RV could knock them off, Washington Township could knock them off. Didn't do it.
No.
And now all of a sudden they're the greatest thing ever again, and they're the favorite to go for a three-peat.
That'll be a great game in Group 5. I'm looking forward to catching the end of it. The non-public A finals. You got these both Friday at MetLife. You got the brunch game. You got Pope John and DePaul in non-pub A. And then non-pub B, apologies. Non-pub A, you have Don Bosco. Took care of St. Augustine last week in the snow. And Bergen Catholic, that's 8 p.m. Bergen overtime against St. Joe Montvale, and quarterback Lamar Best from Willingburg came back and played that one. That was a thriller. This is probably going to decide the number 1 team in New Jersey. I would imagine most of the rankings will come from the Bosco Bergen winner. DePaul is mighty powerful. Those are some high-octane non-public finals, John.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a lot of time on the non-pubs the last couple of weeks. I remember you were at the Winslow Millville game on the sideline, and we said, hey, Holy Spirit tied it up at 7-7. And then the next thing you know, it's 42-7 DePaul. And I think even though Pope John is playing really well, beat Camden Catholic, 42-7 for the guys that follow South Jersey football. They were head and shoulders the favorite when that bracket came out. And they arguably, depending on what happens at Bergen Catholic game, they could be the number 1 team in the state. Should they win and maybe Bergen gets knocked off. And then, Bergen Catholic's been the number 1 team in New Jersey for the last couple of years. Their only loss is IMG. So they just find a way to win. I mean, both those games are kind of, who we expected to be there.
Of course.
Our non-pub matchup right now in Paul 6 and Camden Catholic. How about this? We don't have video of this. We're just going to describe knots of the week. Austin Bailey, committed to Wagner, takes a second half kickoff 95 yards for a touchdown. Right after that, picks off a pass, takes it down to the 10. He fumbles it. It goes in the end zone. Paul 6 recovers it. They're up 35-10. 2 knots for them.
Wow.
As they open it up against Irish, it seems like, early in the third quarter. Group 4 state final. Here we go. Winslow, 13-0. They've been South Jersey's best team this year. Many think they might be the best public team in the state this year. I don't know. We'll see how the rankings shake out. Phillipsburg, 11-1. This is Wednesday at Rutgers at 7 p.m. It's the reason we're not going to have a show Wednesday at 7 p.m. because we're going to be watching that show, which will be great. How P-Burg got here, and we talked about how Winslow got here in the beginning of the show, so if you missed it, go back and you can see exactly what happened against Millville, 13-7. P-Burg won North 2, Group 4 championship. They beat Nutley 42-0. Chatham 31-14. Northern Highlands 13-11 on a last-second field goal. And they beat Ramapo 35-6 in the state semifinals. Genovese is their star. He had 4 touchdowns in that game over Ramapo. 15 carries, 149 yards. Felix Matos also ran for a touchdown. Genovese on the year, 92 of 141, 1,700 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, as John's been talking about. You tell these good quarterbacks all protect the football. 87 carries, 652 yards, 10 touchdowns on the ground. Sam Detch, 8 touchdowns on the ground, 700 yards rushing. Matthew Skirbo Jr., 1,000 yards on the ground, 11 touchdowns. Matos, 570 on the ground, 15 touchdowns. Khalil Lewis, 6 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 32 total tackles. For a P-Burg team that does play on Thanksgiving against Easton, as we alluded to before. For Winslow, there's a lot of guys to talk about. Winslow, I went over the stats for Nakeem Powell earlier. He does it all. Jalen Parker's probably been the best quarterback in South Jersey this year. 155 of 240, 2,700 yards, 41 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 21 carries, 133 yards, and another touchdown. Roman Duckett's run for 15 touchdowns. Cam Miller's caught 12 of them. Nikir Boomer Helton, 44 catches, 809 yards, 13 touchdowns. A lot of guys to list. On that defense, you're looking at Asar, right? Asar? Sorry. Hurd, Mr. Starfin, Benji Carter, Marcus Upton. On that line, offensively, Mr. Hatfield. You got a lot of action from Winslow. A lot of great players. Group 4 state championship. This may be saving the best for last. Winslow undefeated. How do you feel about this matchup?
I'll tell you what I do like. I do like if I'm Winslow, I get to go after I have Thanksgiving dinner a little later on Thursday, and I go watch the Peaburg Easton game.
Coach Belton said he can't go. He said he's got some family obligations. I asked him that right after the game.
You and I would be there.
But you could put it on, PHL 17 or Comcast.
Correct.
Somebody from Winslow will be there.
It's live on TV. I know it's live.
Somebody will be there, as we smelling the players, watching them off and on that field.
Yeah.
Because we know there's no love lost between Peaburg and Easton. So they're gonna get best effort. Now that doesn't. In saying that, Winslow all year, multiple weapons. We talked about it. Taking advantage of opportunities, showing out defensively when need to. They're not just this high-flying circus that's going to, they're not getting 42-38 games as we talked about in the beginning of the show. They can knuckle up and play in some tough smash-mouth football and win games that way. With a quarterback who's, coach, 41 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I mean, so he usually puts it where he wants to. Great matchup, but Winslow has just been they were going to have to get tested against. They had their test against Millville.
Yes,
and they stood up to that test. It'll be, and I think they got a little bit of that. It's our turn now. It's our spot. It's our turn. It's our shot to take care of this and make it Winslow's champion.
Yeah, just like we talked about, with some of the other programs, Mainland, Cedar Grove, Winslow's been, working for this moment. Rumson, okay? This is a team that, got, I'm going to say embarrassed, but they got handled in the state semifinals at home last year versus Mainland. And it's all about getting back to the championship. I was really impressed with their resiliency and how calm they stayed last week, at least from the outside looking in. Millville played, perfect first half. Things were going their way. The quarterback struggling, taking some big hits, Rod, as you saw in the first half. The Millville D-line really dominated that first half. No panic. They just stayed the course, did their thing. They have so many weapons on offense. I think it starts at the wideout position with Helton and Miller, but then they got 2 or 3 running backs that could carry the ball. 21 is very dynamic, especially, I talked to Coach Belton after the game. I thought he was great catching the ball out of the backfield. A couple times it was a windy day. I thought Parker could have hit him a couple more times, and he really made some plays after the catch. And the Winslow defense is underrated. They held St. Augie's to 7. They held Mainland, to a couple scores. Shut down Millville pretty much twice, and Brooks. And we know how great he is. Top 50 player maybe in the country. So I just think, some factors, Phillipsburg's, going to try to run the ball, going to try to limit Winslow's possessions. And I just think if the weather conditions are good, which they weren't last Saturday, and Parker's on his game, it's hard to see Winslow not winning.
Right.
And I think if you're playing a big physical game, isn't it nice to have 10 days off?
Oh, big time.
I mean, could you imagine if Winslow had to come back and play this Friday after how physically and mentally exhausting that game was Saturday? That was a battle. That was a 4-quarter battle, man.
4-quarter battle, mentally, not only physically, mentally, right? You're getting over to, yes, you'd beat Millville during the season, but you're mentally getting over the hump.
Of where you lost the year before.
Correct.
Home in the state semifinals.
There's something about that semifinal game. You got to get to the final game. Let's get to the final. Right? You got to get to the final.
That's right.
Whether it be the old sectional final or whatever it was at the end, you got to get to the last game. And now they're in the last game. I'm not saying the pressure comes off. It just becomes different. 10 days off is huge. You know, a little Thanksgiving, a little practice here. At this time of year, it's a fun time to practice together. You know, your seniors, last time being with each other, getting ready for a state championship, state final. Back to Phillipsburg, they are run control, ball control. Can they control it enough, right? Can they control it enough? And, you know, we talk about, I don't know. I wouldn't say Winslow's defense is underrated, Coach. We rate them pretty. I mean, I know
they're not underrated when they're under talked about.
There you go.
Because when the quarterback's got 41 touchdown passes,
no doubt,
and all these guys. But Cam Miller, you know, he did a great job on Brooks.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about it. You know, outside the camera, you know, he wasn't in on the touchdown catch. He went in the game, and when you got a guy like that who had the big pick to kind of clinch it, some of these guys, Upton, Brooks, Sar Hurd. Who's number 8? What's his real name? The D lineman, Carter.
Dude.
Jalen Carter, whatever, you know.
Benji
Jalen Carter. I mean, they got guys that are as good or better on defense than they are on offense. You just don't talk about it because they're scoring 50 points every week. They're so good.
No, you referenced the game last year versus Mainland. I think that that was the spark for Winslow this year. And then they went into the offseason, they trained, they knew what they needed to do. They got stronger, they got faster, they got bigger, all of that. And then getting over the hump of Millville, right? Millville, and Coach, you just spoke to the psychological side of it. Millville has been the team in South Jersey for the last 3 years, possibly 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have really been the team. So now they get past that hump. This little bit of time could help them. And yes, the defense is drastically under-talked about, not underrated by coaches and people
that watch.
They're not
underrated. They're under-talked about.
They're definitely
that's
under-talked
a better
about.
word.
Well, here's the thing, too. Winslow, the way that they've built up, and you've seen it since that COVID year was the first year. They were 3-8 the year before. The COVID year, they were undefeated. They were this story out of nowhere, right? And then they they lost the spirit in that game down in Absecon in the pod semifinals.
And that was a bad loss.
It was a blowout.
Yeah.
They were not at the caliber of a
They were top
South
4
Jersey
team in South Jersey going into that game.
Yeah, but they certainly were not number 1 or 2 after that game.
Exactly.
I mean, there was a discrepancy. And they took it, and they learned from it, and they built on it. The next year, they won the section. They lost to Millville by 10 at Rutgers. The next year felt like this is the year. Mainland tore through everybody like a knife through hot butter or hot knife through butter. And then this year, it's all been this culmination. I mean, look at this. This year, Winslow scored 524 points, and they've allowed 87. In the best division in South Jersey, they absolutely rolled through it. They did play a close game. They won it. They found a way to win it. As Kevin Minnick says, they're going to be very good next year. I think you say the same for Mainland, say the same for Glassboro.
I'll give some love to Kevin Minnick because, you know, he was probably one of the guys, you know, that was willing to say, hey, you know, I think Winslow's the number 1 team in South Jersey going into the season. When they had lost to Mainland, you know, probably haven't beaten Millville in a couple years, like you said, or beat Millville, you know, yet. And, you know, after the Battle of the Beach, when Winslow, you know, they looked good, 21-0 win or whatever it was. They dominated. And Millville just looked unbelievable against Holy Spirit. And Brooks, you know, with the record-breaking catches and plays. You know, until they beat Millville, they kind of flew under the radar a little bit in terms of, hey, they're not number 1 yet. Mm-hmm. But then, since the middle of the season, they have asserted themselves.
Yeah.
And internally, no doubt, since last year, it's championship or bust. And I know we get into this. Well, next year they got all these guys back. Hey, man, every year is different.
Every year is
Nobody expected Mainland to come out of nowhere like they did, you know, for the most part,
right,
for their last 3-year run.
Yes.
You don't know who's going to be the next team,
No.
but this is a great group of guys playing with chemistry, well coached, and they just got one more game to try to finish it off.
Well, I'll tell you this, in the recent era, if Winslow could win this game, we'll have a different discussion next Friday or whenever we have the show, not next Friday. Next week, we had somebody ask a few weeks ago, how do you compare Mainland last year to Winslow this year? I'd go even back to the Timber Creek team of how many years ago was that, Rod, undefeated champion that beat him
16 was really
here.
good.
Talk about some
Leary's
recent
junior year,
public
16
Hey,
was
that
good,
was
right?
that was a
16?
stat, coach. I
16.
mean,
You know,
Why
you've got
16 was good.
some teams that
Why we got it? Why we
you
got
could start looking at and having a fun conversation about. But you're
We
right.
had
I mean,
a good time for a half, Rod.
what Winslow's been able to do. What
Oh, you
Winslow's
got
been able
guys
to
in
do.
516 wins.
It's 10-10 and a half.
yeah.
But what
31-10
Winslow's
final?
been able
I
to do
remember
this
that, so.
year, they have incredible talent. They have great coaching. What I like about them is they are very, very disciplined. They do not play penalty-ridden football. They don't.
Look,
They're very disciplined.
They don't jump off sides.
They don't jump off.
You know, they
Exactly.
play.
They're
They
very
don't
sound.
have the pre-snap.
They're not going to beat
penalties.
themselves.
They play clean. They play a clean style. They're physical but clean.
Yeah.
That's a rare thing in high school.
It's hard. It's hard
when they're physical and clean.
It's impressive to do that. And you look at I
was impressed with just the way they played because, like I said, Millville played a great game. Right? There's a couple plays in that game that could have determined the outcome for sure. But Winslow they didn't beat themselves. They played clean and
Coach,
they found a way to win.
Coach, they left 87 points in 13 games.
Playing the toughest schedule we could throw at them.
Coach, that's less than 7 points a game.
Yeah.
They're playing every monster in South Jersey, and they're letting up less than 7 points a game. So,
they were the team coming into the season that was hot.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said,
all the hype was there.
The hype was there.
Yeah,
Kevin Minnick, Kevin Emmons, like I know me and Kev, we had that discussion of should we put them number one to start out of the gate, or do we give respect to Mainland for it's one of those things, but they hit the ground running, and it started off a little rough at the Battle at the Beach, but because they didn't win impressive because people
scored 50 points.
Yeah, they were comparing
they also
them
were not disciplined.
They weren't disciplined in that game.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
almost cost them.
Well,
right.
It's 2
but
weeks.
For them,
it's 2 weeks of practice.
But
It's early.
again,
it's early. That's right.
It's early.
For them to be in the position that they're in now with
they also didn't have Upton. They've gotten the chemistry along the way.
Gelling happens. The guys,
Also, they learned a lot from Mainland's coaches.
Yeah.
Without them actually teaching them. Miles Nash came in last year and kind of was explaining the difficulties of it, but that helped him as a coach, as a defensive coordinator, to learn how to adjust and be prepared in certain things. And you can't really state how big of an addition that Ali was to the staff as well. These are guys that have been around from Temple to Western Michigan to
I just think, like I said, that composure
football.
on the sideline. They were down, but they stayed composed.
Well,
I didn't see any panic, and that's what you needed this time of year.
Listen, they know there's a reason why the first downs are 10 yards, not 15. If you're behind the sticks on a procedure or something stupid, they're not penalized. They play, like you said, they play aggressive without penalties. They're tough on defense. Their defensive line is just nasty. And that's when you look at a team. Go to every level. If you got a defensive line, you can compete, right? If you have and then usually that equates to a pretty good offensive line, and look, then you got end skills.
And one of the adjustments
young guys too.
I'll say this: one of the adjustments too for Winslow, talking with Bill, was the fact that this is the first year that he's had an offensive line coach. So now it's a little different being coached by a position guy versus being coached by the offensive coordinator, just being told where to go. Oh, we want to do this. Now you have somebody there in the trenches with those guys every single day.
I mean, most coaches will tell you, and not to knock anybody else, but the O-line coach is usually the key guy on the staff that you have to take with you.
Coach, we know.
Every level.
You get a job somewhere, the first call you make is the O-line guy.
Because if you're not,
that's who you got.
And Coach Belton's defense is probably like, hey, if you can't find a guy to do it, you ask any coach, he's going to do it himself. Well, it's that important,
right?
So when you say I have a guy like that. That's like having another head coach.
Right.
That guy, I always say, that guy has 5 to 6 guys on the field every offensive snap. No other position has that much role in the game. Right. Think about that.
Winslow, Phillipsburg, Wednesday, Rutgers, 7 p.m. State finals are here. have a lot to be thankful for, including everybody in this room. You guys do a great job. You've done great tonight. You sacrificed Thanksgiving Eve. I appreciate that. I know you guys love football as much as I do, which means that's a lot. Some of you love it even more. Really a lot.
We love it in our own way. You know,
Right.
Max, former coach, but played his whole life, son of a coach. You're in the, you're a contributor, journalist, to president of Touchdown Club, you name it. And I'm actively coaching, but I'm happy to come here the last 3 weeks, and I'm thankful for being invited, and I enjoyed being able to come on here and talk about the great game of football, which I love, obviously, too.
How about the guy who keeps the lights on for us here, Rod? I mean, he's been in it from the jump. Youth football, uniforms, everything else, and now D2 Sports Network. Rod does everything you need from beautiful Studio B. If you need any assistance at all, photo sessions, podcasts, really anything that involves digital media, reach out to Rod. He'll make it happen. We got one more show left. It'll be the wrap-up show. We'll figure out when that's going to be. We'll let you all know when it is. But until then, I hope you enjoy your turkey, enjoy your family. Everybody try to get along. I know it'll be a long day around the table with
Right?
I wish we had
with everybody in one room. You know how that gets.
Know
We
where
need
the
a little
line's
elbow
playing.
room. So take some gravy.
All we need is
Take a little gravy.
Max making the gravy.
Everybody just pray for tolerance and then don't abuse the gravy bowl.
There
That's
you
it.
go.
Max making the gravy and rationing out.
That's right.
He's making sure everybody
I
gets
am a little bit of the gravy czar. So,
the gravy for us.
I don't. You can't be doing too much gravy.
Well, we need some predictions, Mark. Is the South going to win all 5?
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Glassboro, Rumson, Mainland, Winslow, Toms River,
North.
North.
I'm not going to say which ones, but I'm saying they're going to win 4.
4 of the 5.
4 of the 5.
And would you say all 5 of those teams are favored? All the 5 South teams are favored?
I would say the Glassboro game, I don't know.
Is a toss-up. That's a
and
toss-up.
I don't know who's favored. And I would say the Mainland game, I don't know. I think I think both
probably,
programs is a
I'm
toss-up.
calling it here, right here today. Clean sweep.
Five
for five?
teams from South.
5
sweep.
for 5.
Okay.
I
Clean
think
sweep.
it's possible. So Mark says 4.
Mark says 4. I admit 3 would be a little. I think three's like the base. 4's Trible. We all want to sweep, so let's go 5.
Well, I hope for 5, but I don't know.
I'm the coach, so no predictions.
Right? Do you notice how we're starting to wrap our arms around Toms River North and Rumson? We're trying to bring them.
Hey,
we're trying to bring them
once
in.
we get to that final, I mean, let's keep it sectionalized here.
We play them so much, and we
right.
might as well throw Wall in too. They might as well be
right.
from there.
I think there's a
We
lot
play
of
'em too
respect for
much.
Toms River North and
No
Wilson, and
Yeah, no question.
they're wearing the South banner this week. So
And
we'll
the last
see.
2 years. Best of luck to everybody who's playing this weekend. And if you're driving on any of the 3 days, and if you have a long drive, even on Friday, just be sure to be extra safe.
Could be rough weather, right? It's Friday, maybe.
Could
a
be
little
some
bit?
wind. Could be some cold. Everybody button up. We'll see you one more time. Good luck, everybody, this weekend. Have a good holiday for the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.